I honestly didn't think it could get more embarrassing for Nancy Mace. I really didn't. I mean, we have watched this woman debase herself in real time for years. We watched her go from being a sane, moderate voice condemning January 6th to literally flying to New York to beg for Donald Trump's attention on the sidewalk outside Trump Tower. We watched her wear a Scarlet Letter on the House floor because she wanted to pretend she was a victim of, I don't know, basic accountability? We watched her vote to oust Kevin McCarthy with absolutely no plan, just for the dopamine hit of a few likes on Twitter. She has done everything, and I mean everything, to prove to the MAGA base that she is one of them. She sold out her principles, she sold out her dignity, and she turned her entire congressional career into a performance art piece for an audience of one. And look where it got her. As of this week, Nancy Mace isn't just losing the plot, she is being cannibalized by the very monster she helped feed. Austin McCubbin, her senior campaign strategist, a guy who was a literal Trump state director, a man who lives and breathes the MAGA ecosystem, didn't just quit. He didn't just walk away quietly to spend more time with his family. He publicly immolated her campaign on his way out the door. He called her a traitor. Not a rhino, not disloyal, a traitor. And why? Because apparently, in the paranoid purity testing fever dream that is the modern Republican Party, Nancy Mace wasn't pure enough. The accusation is that she's been secretly cutting deals with the Libertarian wing, Rand Paul, Thomas Massie, and writing checks to their PACs. And in Trump's orbit, you cannot serve two masters. You cannot have a backup plan. If you aren't 100% all in on the MAGA agenda every second of every day, you are the enemy.
It is almost Shakespearean, isn't it? Here's a woman who has spent every waking moment trying to convince the world she is a hardcore Trump warrior, only to be destroyed by a hardcore Trump operative who says she's actually a secret libertarian sleeper agent. You cannot make this stuff up. But here is the reality that Nancy Mace is finding out the hard way, and it's the same reality that consumes everyone who tries to play this game. Loyalty to Donald Trump is a suicide pact. It doesn't matter how many times you kiss the ring. It doesn't matter how much you humiliate yourself on cable news. The second you step 1 inch out of line, or in Mace's case, the second you kind of build a little insurance policy with the Rand Paul faction because you know the Trump train eventually crashes, they will cut you loose. This isn't just staff drama. This is the implosion of a political identity. Nancy Mace tried to be everything to everyone. The independent voice for CNN, the MAGA warrior for Fox News, the libertarian ally for the donors, and she has ended up being absolutely nothing to anyone. If you are a Trump voter, you've just been told she's a traitor. If you're a Democrat, you already know she's a hypocrite. And if you're Nancy Mace, you are waking up today realizing that you sold your soul for a movement that just spit you out. And the worst part? The receipts backing up this betrayal are actually damning. So let's look at the evidence. And I don't mean the headlines, I mean the autopsy. Because if you want to understand why the MAGA world is currently melting down over Nancy Mace, you have to look at the specific forensic details of what Austin McCubbin actually said. This wasn't a vague, she's not conservative enough tweet. This wasn't a generic, we have creative differences press release. This was a police report.
First, let's establish who the accuser is, because the Mace campaign is trying very hard right now to paint him as some low-level disgruntled grifter. Austin McCubbin is not an intern. He isn't a coffee boy. He served as the Trump state director for South Carolina. In the hierarchy of MAGA, that is a made man. That is someone who has been vetted, tested, and approved by the inner circle. When he speaks, he is speaking with the implicit authority of the movement. So, when he says Nancy Mace is a traitor, that isn't an opinion. To the base, that is a verdict. Now look at the specific allegation he made. He didn't just accuse her of liking Rand Paul. He accused her of directing a secret financial pipeline to his operation. Here's the exact quote from McCubbin's resignation. He alleges that Mace directed a personal friend to write a 7-figure check, that is at least $1 million, to the Protect Freedom PAC. Let's pause right there. 7 figures. We are not talking about a $2,000 donation to a colleague. We are talking about $1 million war chest being moved by a proxy. And why use a proxy? Why use a personal friend? If Nancy Mace is so proud of her alliance with the libertarian wing of the party, why not write the check from her own leadership PAC? Why not hold a public fundraiser? because she knows exactly what she is doing. She is hiding the money trail. She knows that if Donald Trump sees her name attached to $1 million check to the Protect Freedom PAC, her career is over. And here's why that specific PAC matters. The Protect Freedom PAC is the operational arm of Senator Rand Paul. And right now, in December 2025, Rand Paul and his closest ally in the House, Thomas Massey, are effectively at war with the Trump White House.
You have to look at the context. We are currently watching Thomas Massey lead a crusade to force the release of the Epstein files, a move that the Trump administration has been frantically trying to block. We are watching Rand Paul hold up administration appointees and criticize the president's foreign policy decisions in the Caribbean. To the loyalist wing of the GOP, Paul and Massey aren't just fellow Republicans right now, they are obstructionists. They are the enemy within. Trump has called Massey a lowlife. He has endorsed a primary challenger against him. And yet, here is Nancy Mace, the woman who goes on Fox News and claims to be the most pro-Trump governor candidate in the country, allegedly funneling $1 million to the very people who are trying to humiliate Donald Trump. That is the betrayal. McCubbin's resignation letter explicitly calls this out. He says the straw that broke the camel's back was realizing that Mace wasn't just flirting with libertarianism, she was positioning herself as a proxy for Rand Paul's 2028 presidential campaign. Think about the level of duplicity required here. On Monday, she is begging for Trump's endorsement for her governor's race. On Tuesday, she is allegedly directing cash to the war chest of the man who might challenge the Trump heir apparent in 2028. She is effectively using MAGA voters could get elected while secretly funding the contingency plan for when the MAGA movement burns out. And here is the kicker, the forensic proof that this isn't just McCubbin making things up. The voting record matches the accusation.
Just recently, when the vote came up to force the release of those Epstein files, a vote that Donald Trump personally whipped against, Nancy Mace didn't stand with Trump. She stood with Thomas Massey. She voted to trigger the process. Now, at the time, she framed this as a moral stance, citing her own traumatic history as a survivor, which is a valid and powerful position. But look at it through the lens of this resignation. Was it just a moral stance? Or was it a signal to the libertarian donors she is allegedly courting? When you combine that vote with the allegation of a 7-figure secret check to the Paul Massey machine, the picture changes completely. It stops looking like independence and starts looking like a transaction. The Mace campaign's response to this has been telling. They didn't deny the check existed. Did you notice that? They attacked McCubbin. They called him a failed consultant. They said he wanted $10,000 a month. But they did not explicitly deny the existence of the 7-figure donation from a personal friend. That is the tell. If this was a lie, if there was no check, if there was no personal friend, they would have sued him for libel 5 minutes after he hit post. Instead, they are attacking his character. That is what you do when the facts are against you. They're hoping you focus on the messenger, so you don't look at the wire transfer. So where does this leave us? We have a quote-unquote Trump loyalist who is allegedly laundering money to Trump's enemies via a proxy, all while running for governor in a state where Trump is treated like a deity. Nancy Mace isn't just playing with fire. She is dousing herself in gasoline and handing Austin McCubbin a match.
But here is the thing, and this is where we have to zoom out. This isn't just about one donation. If you look at Nancy Mace's history, if you look at the pattern of behavior over the last 5 years, this isn't a mistake. This is the strategy. This is exactly who she has always been. But if you think this is just about a check to Rand Paul, if you think this is just a one-time slip-up where Nancy Mace accidentally funded the wrong PAC, you are missing the forest for the trees. Because this resignation letter, this accusation of betrayal, it isn't a glitch. It is the inevitable conclusion of the Nancy Mace experience. If you rewind the tape, if you look at the last 5 years of her career, you realize that Austin McCubbin isn't exposing a secret. He is just the first person in Trump's inner circle to say the quiet part out loud. Nancy Mace doesn't have an ideology. She doesn't have a North Star. She has a weather vane. And she spins it so fast, it's a miracle she hasn't gotten whiplash. Let's go back to the beginning. Let's look at the record. Do you remember January 7th, 2021, the day after the insurrection? Nancy Mace went on national television, on CNN, mind you, and she looked right into the camera and said, quote, "His entire legacy was wiped out yesterday." She said of Donald Trump, "We have got to start over." She didn't stutter. She didn't mince words. She positioned herself as the conscience of the GOP, the brave new voice who was going to lead the party out of the MAGA darkness. She was the anti-Trump Republican. She was the future. And what happened the second she realized that the base wasn't going to leave Trump? What happened the moment she saw the polling data for her primary in South Carolina? She folded.
She didn't just walk it back, she sprinted back. She flew to New York City and filmed a video of herself standing on the sidewalk outside Trump Tower, literally outside the building, begging for his attention like a tourist hoping for a selfie. It was one of the most debasing displays of political groveling I have ever seen. She went from "his legacy is wiped out" to "he is the only man who can save America" in record time. So when McCubbin calls her a traitor, he isn't just talking about a check. He is talking about a person whose loyalty has an expiration date of about 15 minutes. But it gets worse. Let's talk about October 2023. Let's talk about the ousting of Kevin McCarthy. Nancy Mace was one of the Gates 8. She was one of the 8 Republicans who voted to plunge the House of Representatives into chaos by firing the Speaker. Now look, I am no fan of Kevin McCarthy, but look why she said she did it. She went on TV and claimed McCarthy broke promises to her about, wait for it, women's issues and access to birth control. She framed her vote as a feminist stand. And who did she immediately endorse to replace him? Jim Jordan. She ousted a speaker because he wasn't doing enough for women, and then threw her full support behind the architect of a national abortion ban. Make it make sense. You can't, because it's not about policy. It was about getting booked on Steve Bannon's War Room podcast. It was about the clout. And then, and I honestly wish I was making this up, but I am not. She came to the Capitol wearing a t-shirt with a giant red A on it. A literal Scarlet Letter.
She walked into the halls of Congress cosplaying as a victim of Puritan persecution because people were mean to her about firing the Speaker. It was performance art. It was main character syndrome on steroids. She treats the United States Congress like it's a reality show confessional booth. So now, fast forward to today. Fast forward to December 2025. Nancy Mace sees the writing on the wall. She sees that the Trump administration is chaotic. She sees that the America First populist wave might be cresting. So what does she do? Does she stick it out? Does she stay loyal to the man she begged to endorse her? No. She hedges her bet. She looks at Rand Paul and Thomas Massie, the libertarians, the contrarians, the guys who are currently being a thorn in Trump's side, and she thinks that might be the next lifeboat. This is the pattern. When the wind blew towards Never Trump, she was Never Trump. When the wind blew towards MAGA, she was MAGA. When the wind blew towards chaos, she was chaos. And now that the wind is blowing towards a potential libertarian insurgence in 2028, suddenly she has a personal friend writing 7-figure checks to Rand Paul's PAC. Austin McCubbin didn't quit because he was denied a fee. That is the spin. He quit because he works for a movement that demands total submission, and he realized he was working for a woman who is physically incapable of submitting to anything other than her own ambition. He knows that Nancy Mace isn't loyal to Trump, she isn't loyal to Rand Paul, Nancy Mace is loyal to Nancy Mace. And in a party that operates like a crime family, being a free agent is the most dangerous thing you can be. McCubbin is sending a signal to every donor, every voter, and every operative in the GOP. She is not one of us. She is using us.
But here is where this stops being funny and starts being terrifying. Because while we can laugh at the Scarlet Letter shirt and we can roll our eyes at the hypocrisy, the consequences of this fracture, this civil war breaking out between the loyalists and the libertarians, are actually incredibly high. Because if they are willing to eat their own like this, what do you think they are going to do to the rest of the country while they fight for control? And that brings us to the real problem. Because if you think this ends with Nancy Mace losing a primary or getting yelled at on Twitter, you are thinking too small. This resignation, this public airing of dirty laundry, is the canary in the coal mine for the entire Republican Party as we head into 2026. Let's look at the chessboard. Austin McCubbin didn't just accuse Nancy Mace of being a bad boss. He accused her of being a proxy for Rand Paul's 2028 presidential campaign. Do you understand the gravity of that charge? We are in December 2025. Donald Trump is in the White House, and already, his own party is engaging in a shadow war for who gets to wear the crown next. You have the loyalists, the people who want to turn the GOP into a hereditary monarchy for the Trump family. And then you have the libertarians, the Rand Pauls, the Thomas Masseys, and apparently the Nancy Maces, who are quietly building a war chest to hijack the party once the Trump era ends. And they are doing it by weaponizing the one thing Donald Trump cannot control, the truth. Look at the wedge issues they're using. They aren't attacking him on wokeism. They aren't attacking him on the border. They're attacking him on the Epstein files. They're attacking him on government spending. They're attacking him on executive overreach in foreign policy.
These are the exact issues that appeal to the America First base, but they're issues where Trump is vulnerable. And people like Nancy Mace are trying to surf that wave. She voted to release the Epstein files against Trump's wishes, not because she is a crusader for justice, but because she knows that is where the energy is. She is betting that by 2028, the base will be tired of the cover-ups, and they will want the burn-it-all-down energy of the libertarian wing. But here is the danger. Here is the endgame that should terrify anyone who cares about a functioning government. When a political party stops fighting the opposition and starts fighting a civil war over purity, governance stops. We're already seeing it. The House is paralyzed. You have members like Marjorie Taylor Greene threatening to resign because she's being primaried. You have Thomas Massie holding up legislation. You have the Senate gridlocked because Rand Paul is filibustering spending bills. And now you have the South Carolina governor's race, a race that should be a cakewalk for Republicans, turning into a circular firing squad. If Nancy Mace is willing to funnel millions to a rival faction while pretending to be Trump's best friend, what does that tell you about the state of the coalition? It tells you that the coalition is dead. There is no Republican Party anymore. There are just 5 or 6 warring tribes sharing a bank account. And as we head into the 2026 midterms, this fracturing is going to cost them everything. While they are busy screaming traitor at each other on X, Democrats are organizing. While they are busy purging anyone who isn't 100% loyal to the specific flavor of the month, the country is looking for adults in the room.
If this continues, if we see more dossiers, more resignations, more accusations of secret funding, the GOP isn't just going to lose the House. They are going to hand the Democrats a mandate on a silver platter. So, let's wrap this up. Nancy Mace might survive this news cycle. She is slippery. She has survived worse. But the damage is done. The mask has slipped. Austin McCubbin proved that in the MAGA movement, there are no friends, only future victims. And for the rest of us, the lesson is simple. Do not look away. Do not treat this as entertainment. This is the disintegration of a major American political party happening in real time. It is chaotic. It is dangerous. And if we aren't careful, the shrapnel from their civil war is going to hit the rest of us. They are showing you exactly who they are. They are showing you that they care more about power struggles, secret checks, and 2028 positioning than they do about governing the country in 2025. Believe them.